Welcome, welcome very, very much to Conversations, where we have a guest who's one of my dearest friends from about 1,000 years. We've been good friends, and she is somebody who is always coming up on a different kind of thing that is always important and always ahead of the curve of the way things are developing, and that's none other than Nita Renfrew, my dear friend from 1,000 years ago. We've been in spirits over the years and everything like that, and she's now involved, we could call her Birdman, okay, or Bird Lady, and everything. And she's a wonderful person, and so good to talk with you again, Nita. So good to see you looking great. Oh, you're supposed to say something.
Am I?
Yeah.
Is that what you're supposed to talk on this
You're
program?
supposed to talk, yes, that's what you said.
But you usually don't want anybody else to talk, so I thought I'd just let you talk.
No. I like talking to you, and we were talking before. And you've been all over the place. You've been you always something new you're dividing into. If you want a surprise, give Nita a call, and she's off on some other thing. I remember I did it one time. I didn't know she was in the middle of Greenland, for crying out loud, or something. She just went off on a lark. But anyway, now you're now the bird lady of Central Park, and you're very much involved with appreciation of an ecological understanding of the planet and of the world. And I think that's wonderful. You got a book that we could let mention and everything like that. But you're also having communication with the birds of Central Park, where you live very near that, and so forth. So that's something we want to talk about on the program today.
Well, I live right next to Central Park.
Yeah.
And a few years ago, I discovered Central Park after living next to it for many, many years.
Really? Yeah, okay.
And it was the birds that led me to discover Central Park.
Yeah.
And I started spending time, I started spending time with geese and with pigeons. And then I actually injured my knee and I couldn't walk very far.
Really?
So I would walk 2 blocks to sit in Central Park right inside of 76th Street, the entrance.
Right.
And, you know, that's a place where there are a lot of people walking by and bicycles and, you know, all kinds of stuff.
Right.
And vendors and everything. And I sat there and I was just grateful to be able to sit there under the trees. And then I started, the sparrows there started to befriend me. And, you know, sparrows are something that, you know, people look down upon, and they call them those brown jobs and everything. And I began to notice that these sparrows are beautiful. And, you know, it's like, they're not brown, they're chestnut colored, and they have, you know, they have ivory colored bars on them, and they have these beautiful markings, and they're very friendly, and they're very curious. If you listen to them. It's sort of like for those who have eyes to see and ears to hear. And so the sparrows started talking to me, and they started relating to me.
When I grew up in Michigan, in Detroit, we had a house. It was, you know, out there. And every house had a little thing where the sparrows would make a nest. And it was wonderful to have them there, and then some other birds, too.
Exactly.
But it was a great treat to have them on the scene, you know,
So they started coming, and they would, you know, they would hop onto the bench next to me. And then they would eat sunflower seeds out of my hand. And I got to know them, you know, and I could tell. And they have
Could you tell one from the other?
Very different personalities.
Is that true? Personalities.
Personalities.
That's really interesting.
And they would actually line up on the slats. And you know, and you know, it's like they would line up and wait for the seeds, and some of them would like snatch the seed and fly off. And some of them would just sit there with the seed and look up into my eyes with love, and you know, take it very gently out of my fingers and leave. Some of them would stay and want to have several seeds, and then the other birds would start jumping in front of them. And it was very interesting. And then there were other birds who wanted me to throw the seeds so
they could retrieve them, or
they could jump up. And I realized it's a game.
Catch them in the air,
and try to catch them in the air.
Well, like a game.
Like a game. And I guess it was catch the insect game or something.
Oh, it could be from the ancient times.
So then I noticed in the spring the adult birds began bringing all of the baby birds there.
Yeah, the seasons make it different, I guess.
You know, when I would throw the seeds down on the ground, they would just leave them there. They wanted the ones that were jumping. you know, and that would jump when they fell on the ground. And they still do it. And then they would bring all these babies there, and then I noticed that they would leave all of the babies and maybe 2 adults and 50 babies. And I realized,
baby, what are you talking about?
Baby sparrows.
Baby sparrows?
Yeah.
I've never seen anything like that.
Well, and all of these sparrows.
In one place?
What they wanted was for them to play this game of jump and catch the seed or something and learn to eat.
Well, maybe you were feeding sparrows.
Well, but I was feeding them one by one, so it's not like there was a lot of food there, and they would come, Meaning the seeds, the sunflower seeds, I figured out, it was our medium of communication because we don't speak the same physical language.
Right.
So I realized they weren't coming for the food in the sense of
coming from the camaraderie.
They were coming, when
amongst themselves or with you.
With both, so that they would hang out. Yeah. But it was sort of like when you used to go to your grandmother's house.
My grandmother was wonderful.
And there was always food there, right?
Always. Every time I walked in, there was something in the oven baking.
Exactly.
I can remember. Okay. And the candy dish
but
was
that's
always
not the
full.
only. I mean, you didn't go there for food. Meaning,
no, I loved my grandmother.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it was part of the scene, right?
I'm beginning to feel like a bird.
Well, so that's the way these birds are. So they would leave all these baby birds there, and I realized because the birds then they learn very good wing-to-eye coordination by jumping up.
Go a little slow.
Wing-to-eye coordination.
Wing. I'm thinking flying.
Like we have hand-to-eye coordination.
Yeah.
They have wing-to-eye coordination.
Spell it out a little, girl.
Okay, now wings in birds are very important because we have hands.
Let them fly, yeah.
We have hands, and because we have thumbs,
opposable
thumbs. We've been able to. We make very complex tools because they make tools too, but we make complex tools and we make technology and all that kind of stuff.
That's true.
But it's all for controlling. It's for controlling the environment, or for grabbing, or for clutching.
Improving the environment?
Well,
would you say
it's
no
for grabbing. I mean, let's stay away from those words.
Go on. Yeah.
So, for instance, when you see those graphics of the human brain and what parts of the brain correspond to what, a large part of the brain is connected to our hands.
Is that true?
Yes.
See, I didn't.
So a lot of the nervous system is connected to our hands because it takes up a lot of our brain power.
What is this, like an extension of a wing, or
in a bird,
environmentally, or something?
In a bird, instead of hands with thumbs, they have the carpals, but the extensions are the flight feathers.
Feathers, not the claws?
No, feathers.
Feathers,
in the wings.
Okay, yeah.
So
in the wings, yeah, okay, yeah. I was thinking of the feet.
Those are the hands. The others are the feet.
Right.
Okay, so what happens? So they use them for navigating and for aligning. So they don't use them for controlling the outside environment. They use them for aligning with what's there. So a bird. And in order to fly, a bird needs to let go.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay,
it jump off that limb.
And that's why they poop a lot, because they're letting go of weight.
Yeah.
So the way
have a fast metabolism too.
So the way the brain works, it's about letting go in order to be able to fly and to align and so on, and to move through what is there, whether it's a storm or a forest.
Is there any analogy to human behavior or not?
Well, it's the opposite. You see, this is what I'm saying, because we're about holding on to and controlling, and they're about letting go and aligning.
Wow.
So they need to control.
That's a big difference.
So it's a big difference. So they control their flight. They control their carpals and their flight wings. In order to be able to align and so on. But they control the inside, and we're into controlling the outside world.
Yeah, the extension. Oh, that's interesting.
So
it is interesting.
Which leads to technology.
How does that fit into the broad pattern of evolution itself, or
Well, I think they're more evolved, actually.
You think so? Okay, okay.
Because
that's interesting.
Because they've been around. It's taken millions of years for them to go from being dinosaurs.
They were dinosaurs
that didn't fly but had feathers and so on, to being able to do this intricate navigation. We can't navigate with all of our technology, our rockets, and can't perform the navigational feats that ordinary birds can.
Aren't they gorgeous?
Just flying through a forest.
I know, they're just gorgeous. Yeah.
And the reason they have these long necks, one of the reasons, is because then they can keep the head steady while the rest of the body moves.
Yeah.
So that's how they can keep on target when they're flying through, say, a forest with thick vegetation without running into things.
Yeah, I've wondered about that. I have wondered about that.
Which they need to learn. Like baby birds run into things and so on.
Do they? Yeah.
They need to learn how to do that. It's like they have the instinct of doing these things, but they still need to develop it. It's not like they're born and they know.
Is that generally part of the case of an infant of some other species?
It's generally part of the case, yeah.
No, but of evolution in general.
Evolution in general.
Yeah, it's a learning thing.
It's a learning thing.
Right, okay, right.
So, so therefore, it's like if you look at, for instance, human beings, what mystics are trying to attain is to let go and be part. So mystics are really trying to be what birds and other animals are.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's a thought.
So they're trying to. So we consider that mystics have a higher consciousness.
Yeah.
So if mystics have a higher consciousness when they are able to do what birds do, then birds are already there.
With letting go.
They're already letting go.
Is it letting go of ego?
Yeah, they
letting go of ego.
Yeah.
Letting go of ego.
So
it could be a half song.
You look at birds. That would be a good.
Maybe we got a hit here.
I think we got a hit. That's the next book. That'll be a hit.
The next book. Yeah. Right.
With some music to it.
Right.
So what happens with birds is that they and all animals in nature, it's like they feel them.
I love animals.
They get angry and they are happy and they love and all these things. But they don't stay angry.
Okay.
This is
that's interesting.
Which is it's sort of like they live more in what's going on. So it's not like they feel less, but they just don't
nested in nature.
They don't stay with it. Yeah. Now, animals that become pets that are domesticated become many of them become neurotic in ways that birds in the wild aren't.
I've known some neurotic cats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And because they become more like us.
Ye gods. Ye got that bad.
they get the ego.
Well, somebody's got to set the standard for evil. Evil. Yeah. No, go ahead. Yeah.
So I feel like so I started out with these sparrows, and then as I was able to walk more, it took me about a year. I mean, my knee was really badly injured.
Yeah, I remember you had that. Yeah.
I started walking farther into the ramble, and I started befriending all kinds of other birds.
There were birds on Roosevelt Island too. They have geese.
Well,
do they have geese in Central Park?
Oh yes, and they're wonderful. Yeah,
they're really something.
Yeah, they're amazing.
Yeah,
and they're very intelligent too.
Yes.
And so I started going into the ramble, and looking at and I became friends with.
Rambling in the Ramble.
Rambling in the Ramble.
That's another one. That's a song.
We could actually dance to it.
Yeah, you could dance. You could move to
we
that.
could call it. We could have a new dance step. The Ramble. The Ramble step.
Yeah, right. Ramble. Rambleism. Yeah.
Rambleism.
I'll shut up. Go on. Talk to me
That's
about.
That's what I'm suffering from. Rambleism. I was trying to figure out what it was.
Well, I've tried to figure you out for all these many decades, and I'm still trying.
So I have this place in the Ramble now. The Ramble is a place in Central Park.
Yeah.
That it looks a little bit like where we're sitting now. It's supposed, it has a lot of trees and so on, and few tiny little waterfalls and lakes.
Tell them the secret. You can tell them the secret. Should we tell them the secret?
What is the secret?
Or should we keep them like Houdini? We're not sitting in the park. It's a green screen.
No, we are sitting in the park.
We are. You're right. I thought it was a set.
You mean I'm not in the park?
No. Okay. No, imagination.
Well, this is the problem. You see, we can't. If we were younger, we wouldn't be able to tell the difference.
Yeah, right. My favorite people are still in the human species are 5-year-olds. They're my favorite.
So I started hanging out in the
best.
Ramble.
They have no artifice at all.
And I started making friends with woodpeckers. Yeah. I mean, there's a red-bellied woodpecker that comes.
Yeah.
There's one, and he comes and he takes peanuts right from my hand.
Yeah.
There's a little downy woodpecker, and you have some photographs of that you can put up. There's a little downy woodpecker that comes and eats peanuts out of my hand.
Really?
Yes. I mean, little woodpeckers. I have blue jays. There's mourning doves. There's
boy, you got a whole bunch of
cardinals out there that come. There are these chickadees, titmice, and nuthatches that come and they sit on my hand.
They sit on your hand.
Yeah, they come and they sit on my hand.
My friend Maggie, they do that with Maggie, my friend. Yeah. The birds will come and sit on her
But the ones
hand.
that come are the ones that know me. It's not like I can walk anywhere and birds start coming to me.
Oh, you strike up an acquaintance.
Yeah, they're an acquaintance.
Like people.
And then
guess,
exactly.
Yeah.
And then there's a robin that comes, and this robin is amazing because this robin comes, and robins can't chew with their beaks. They have soft beaks, so they eat worms and things. But this robin likes peanuts, but he can't chew them, so I have to chew the peanuts. And then I make a little ball and I hand them to the robin, and the robin, sometimes he eats them and sometimes he carries them off to his family, I guess, And he comes, and sometimes he'll sit there.
My God, you should get all this on video, girl.
And some of these things, passerby sometimes take pictures of this.
Yeah.
But a week ago, the robin brought me 3 worms.
3 worms?
Yes. And that was so cute.
Yeah.
And I thought, the robin thought, well, this is a real delicacy. I'm going to, it's a sign of friendship.
How were they?
Yeah. And, I feel so guilty that I didn't eat them. Because I think I hurt his feelings,
You're going to eat worms. You didn't come to that.
Here's this is a chickadee.
Oh, there you go.
In the winter time. This is last winter. And that's
You're
a little
all bundled
chickadee
up
that
winter.
comes.
Now this is winter. This is a seasonal.
And
pigeon.
this is a story I want to tell.
That's
this is Dora.
Is that the pigeon there, your Dora?
I eventually started working last year up at the Wild Bird Fund. The Wild Bird Fund is it's a place that it's a hospital for birds on Columbus Avenue and 87th Street.
87th. Okay,
and I started going up there because I think, most birds that end up in the hospital there are sick because of human intervention. They run into windows, they eat pesticides, there's a lot of high lead around. Yeah. So they end up there, and the Wild Bird Fund takes care of them and nurses them back to health.
How long have they been in business?
About 5 years, I think.
Only?
4 or 5
but
years.
But at least it's coming online now.
It's
that
coming
kind
online,
of concern for the environment.
Yeah.
And so context of our other creatures. That's a sign of civilization.
Rehabilitate birds up there, and then put them back into the wild.
Yeah, but what about this
Now,
pigeon?
this bird, when I went up there last, I guess it was last November, and I said, well, I started out as a regular volunteer. I thought, well, I'll pay my dues, cleaning cages and so on, which is pretty backbreaking work, I have to say.
Is it really?
Yes.
I don't like work. I don't like backbreaking.
But I guess I'd been there about a week. And they were operating on a bird, and when it was coming out of the anesthesia, I just, I do Reiki.
I know you
healing.
do Reiki.
So
You've done that whole
without
thing.
Thinking, I just put my hands out over it.
Yeah.
And the the veterinarian technician who sort of supervises there, is a Japanese man, Hayato Oda, Eugene. And he's this wonderful guy who loves pigeons and so on, and has a lot of them at his house, too. And he said to me, and he started asking me, well, what are you doing? And I started explaining it to him.
Yeah.
And he's Japanese, but he'd never heard of Reiki, even though it's a Japanese thing.
It is.
And so
did you have a thing for Japan?
He said, well, why don't you work on the birds that are in isolation? There's a little room upstairs. The birds that are in isolation.
That's at the hospital up there on
at the Wild Bird Fund.
Yeah.
These are the birds that are really sick, and that they don't know whether
these are wild birds.
These are wild birds.
The birds are all
mostly
wild
pigeons
birds.
in the isolation room.
Yeah.
And their birds, they don't know whether they have a virus or not, so they isolate them from the other birds so that nothing gets out.
Right.
And he took me to the cage where this bird was, Dora.
There's another picture. Those are handsome
the last
pictures.
one was Dora.
Are these you've taken off your cell phone or something, these pictures? Or where do these pictures come
No, that was a passerby.
They're very good quality pictures.
Angel Kobos. He's a photographer. He's a professional photographer, and he was passing by. But let me tell you the story of Dora,
Look
that
at
pigeon.
That little thing there.
Let me tell you about Dora. And you see the woodpecker.
Dora? Is that
this
the
is
name?
Dora. This is
That's
Dora.
Dora, the
and
woodpecker?
the name was Dora because they don't know whether it's a boy or a girl. It turns out that he's a boy. But
you can't tell.
So Eugene said, now this particular bird is very young, came in very young, and has neurological symptoms. And when they have neurological symptoms, it's like they shake, they have head tremors, their heads move all over the place, they can't stand up, they're wobbly and so on. And a lot of the times it's because of the high lead. There's a lot of high lead poisoning in New York that children get too.
Yeah, that's environmental, isn't it?
It's environmental. So the pigeons get it, and so when they have lead poisoning, they chelate it so that they can get rid of the lead.
What does that mean, chelate?
It means they give you supplements, medications that absorb the lead in you.
Oh, that's a medical procedure.
So it's a medical
treatment. Yeah.
So that then you release it.
Yeah.
So when they have high lead, they can usually get them well. But then there are birds that come in with neurological symptoms, and they test for high lead, but they don't have high lead. So it's either a virus or it's a pesticide or something else out there.
How much connection is there with the veterinarian science or veterinarial science or dogs
most
and cats
most
and
veterinarians don't treat wild birds. Most of them don't treat wild birds. They treat domestic birds. Domestic animals like cats and and parrots and
most people don't treat wolves
dogs
and coyotes and wild dogs.
No.
And
so anyway,
yeah,
so
it's
Dora,
interesting
this
our
wonderful
attitude toward
bird.
the other creatures. Yeah.
So this bird, he said, well, this bird has been here for 4 months, and it has had very, very high lead, and it was very young when it came in, and the lead is just not going down, even though we keep medicating it. So he said, why don't you see what you can do? So I started doing Reiki on this bird, and I would go up every day.
Doing Reiki on the bird?
On the bird. And on other birds, too.
Can you do it on a lamb or on a creature?
Oh, yeah.
You can do Reiki on
But this is the first bird I worked on up there.
Oh.
And so Dora, so then...
how's he doing? She or it?
Well,
what is it? How do you do?
That's what I'm telling you the story. So pretty soon, a few weeks later, this bird started to get better, show fewer head shakes and everything.
Yeah, head shakes.
And I said, well, the bird is getting better. And they also said to me, they said, well, probably it won't be able to be released because this bird was very young when it came in.
Yeah.
And the lead poisoning, usually when they're very young, it creates permanent damage, brain damage. So I just kept working on this bird and working on this bird and working on this bird, and it kept getting better and better and better, showing no brain damage symptoms or anything. So eventually it was well enough so that it could go downstairs with all of the birds that aren't in isolation. Yeah. And they released them for 2 hours a day.
In with other birds?
All together down there.
A variety of birds, or all pigeons? Or
well, this one room is mostly pigeons, but there are robins and other things too, but mostly pigeons. So they release them so they can fly for 2 hours a day and socialize. And pigeons learn by socializing.
They do.
They learn how to find food and everything in the wild with other pigeons.
Yeah, some of them fly in flocks.
They all do.
Do they all do?
Yeah.
They all
so this pigeon had been isolated in this cage.
Yeah.
So it didn't know. It wasn't
from a young bird.
Yes. So it wasn't going to know how to do anything.
Yeah, that's a really interesting study.
So Eugene said to me, probably it's at this point he said it's going to have to be adopted as a pet because it won't know how to take care of itself.
Can these wild birds become pets?
Pigeons do, yeah.
Pigeons do?
Yeah. Because pigeons are not a protected species.
Yeah.
If they're protected species, you can't. It's illegal to have them as pets.
Keep them on the roof of tenements and
but
stuff.
These sparrows and starlings and pigeons are not protected species.
Yeah.
So anyway, so here Dora is downstairs, and I continued working on Dora every day. And of course, we had a real relationship going because I go and I spend half an hour with her every day for months on end. And she was very tame, and so Eugene said, well, the bird's not going to be able to be released because it's too tame. Because if they're too tame, they can't be released.
They wouldn't be able to survive.
Because they won't survive, you see.
They'd walk up to the first crow, and that's it.
So,
or whatever, a hawk.
So, the Reiki always brings what's best.
Yeah, why don't you, for the audience, explain? Reiki is
it's an energy healing, and basically what I do.
You're really steeped in
and
that.
I also do it in a hospital. I do it at New York Presbyterian Hospital.
And you did a long study of that.
And with a lot of good results.
Yeah.
So when you do Reiki, the Reiki is energy. It's like universal healing energy that you bring in and you channel through your hands.
Yeah.
And you always ask it to do what's for the highest good, which means that it doesn't always cure something.
That's Japanese, right?
It's Japanese,
yeah. Okay, yeah.
And Reiki means ki is like that energy, life force energy.
Ki is
and Rei is like universal or supernatural or something like that.
Supernatural force or universal force. Yeah.
So I kept doing, Reiki.
It's an ancient thing.
Well, it's an ancient thing, but as a modality, it's like 100 years old.
Oh, okay.
But it's but it's been around for years.
Right.
So with Dora, here I am, and it's like, and I come in one day, and she's going to be adopted, and I just felt like, this bird needs to be free.
Yeah.
But how is it going to be free? It doesn't know how to do anything. Yeah. So I come in one day, and I see that Dora's not in her cage.
Yeah.
And I talked to the manager there, and she said, what happened was that this morning I saw another bird, a female bird, trying to get into the cage with Dora, and she said, by the way, Dora is a male bird, and this older female bird was
how they discovered when there was a female, they found out who was the male.
Trying to get into the cage.
That's a good way to do it.
And so the manager said, I let the female, whose name was Leah, like Princess Leia in Star Wars and so on, I let Leah into the cage with Dora.
And what happened?
And they immediately started mating.
Oh boy!
And Leah started teaching.
Right there in the
Dora,
right there in public.
How to feed
right there
her,
in public, they
right
did
there, and it was this beautiful thing.
Yeah, right.
And
right.
so she left them in the cage together, and I saw that I saw that Leah was she was supposed to be released the next day in Central Park, and I said, look. And the day before,
you can't let them. You can't separate them.
I know. So the day before,
listen, you got yourself a motion picture here.
Another wonderful thing had happened the day before. That when I had Dora in my hands, and usually she would sit there, and Dora and I have to call him after so many months.
What are we going? Dorian.
Dorian.
Exactly,
Dorian.
Yeah.
So Dorian flew out of my hands, and it took me 20 minutes to catch him.
Wow!
And that
he was all hyped up.
That was a good.
All hyped up young man.
No, this was before the day before Leah came in the cage.
Oh, before.
But what that meant was that Dora was not too tame to be released. Because if I couldn't catch Dora, it meant that Dorian was not
Nita
that.
Can't catch Dora, boy.
And so the next day, Leah comes in.
Yeah.
And starts teaching him all this other stuff, and. So I went around and I talked to everybody and I said, you got to release these two together. And I said, this is perfect because...
Are they flying in Central Park now?
Because Leah...
What a story! What a story!
Leah can teach Dora...
Who's got the rights?
How to find food and everything. Yeah. It's like...
Yes.
So they said to me,
you got an Academy Award winner here.
We can't release them together because we have to think about Dorian and Leah's going to be released tomorrow. And I went home and I was so sad.
Who's representing Dora? Which agency?
I came back the next day.
Who do I talk?
And I saw them there. And I didn't want to ask anything because I just didn't want my heart to be broken.
Right,
I knew this was a fabulous romance.
Yeah, right. Oh, God.
And so...
Shakespeare. Where were you?
And by this time, Dorian sort of lost interest in me.
Really?
Because Leah was there.
Yeah, he's got Leah.
So he and Leah were feeding each other because when they become lovers and they mate for life usually.
They do really.
Yeah, they start feeding each other, and when they're kissing each other, it's like they're actually feeding each other.
What did she do to you? Did she cast you off? Did you feel like a cast off?
So I went upstairs, and Eugene walked upstairs with a box.
Yeah.
And he said, Dora and Leah are in that box, and they're going to be released together.
Oh, wow. Isn't that a story? Isn't that something? Do you ever see them?
Well, they were taken out to New Jersey to be released because it's easier out there in the forest than it is here in Central Park.
Yeah.
Because
it must be like New York's a tough place to live.
Dorian would have to learn how to do
birds
everything.
It's tough too, I guess.
So out in New Jersey, and what they call a soft release, this woman has this wonderful place.
Yeah, okay.
She's called Candy, and she has a whole lot of birds there, and she has a house for them out there, and she puts food out so they can either leave or stay, whatever they want. Pigeons, they're not forced out into the wild to find their own food immediately.
Yeah.
So I'm sure they, it's like.
God, that's a wonderful story.
Isn't that a beautiful story?
Doesn't that make your heart leap up and everything?
Right? Just thinking about it brings tears to my eyes.
Yeah. So you still go into Central Park, and don't you have a pigeon?
So I keep going, and I work on all kinds of birds there.
Yeah, I know you have all kinds of bird friends.
Yeah,
really. You have a friendship relationship.
I have a friendship, but I also go up to the hospital to the Wild Bird Fund, and I do Reiki on.
Good for you. And I do
Reiki
on the
and
bird.
craniosacral. I do craniosacral on all kinds of birds. Craniosacral is another healing.
Similar to Reiki in principle or philosophy?
It's different from Reiki, but it's compatible.
Because you really studied that in depth, the Reiki.
I did.
You made a tremendous commitment to that.
And I do craniosacral now. And some of the birds get really well and so on. And I just love doing this because I feel like I'm contributing. Look at this. This is the tiny downy woodpecker.
What is that?
That's a downy woodpecker coming to eat some sunflower seeds. No, it eats peanuts out of my hand. The downy woodpecker. Isn't she beautiful? That's a female downy woodpecker.
And she'll do that. Okay.
She loves peanuts.
Don't you have a pigeon to greet you when you come out of the house?
When I come out of my, this is a friend of mine that's a blue jay.
This is a story. Get your,
Every day when I go out of my house, since a week ago, there's this pigeon that's waiting for me. Right. No matter what time I come out, whether it's 9 in the morning or 6 in the afternoon.
You sure it's not just an accident? Yeah? Really?
No, it's the same pigeon. And it flies onto my hand.
I'll be damned.
And I'm thinking, I don't know, it may be one of the birds that I treated up at the Wild Bird Fund.
There's a lot of people of
I don't know.
Of a certain kind of non-way of being, or an odd way of being. They call them spirituality.
No, but I don't
they
think
put out what they call a good vibe.
I think so.
You put out a good vibe.
No, because they don't all do it. They only do it when they know me. So I'm thinking that maybe this bird is one of the birds that
I've never had a bird have that
Fund.
relationship to me, for
because
instance.
they don't just come on my hand if I don't know them.
No, but I think you've got a personality or a way or something where it can be understood and felt. And
so this is where I sit in Central Park every day.
I get pretty close like that with the dog. That's a dog.
And
here you are. Yeah.
Yeah,
now,
that's a blue jay friend of mine up there.
Oh, there it is. In the tree. Yeah.
In the tree. Yeah.
That's a beautiful scene.
Isn't that beautiful?
Central Park, huh?
Yeah, that's in Central Park.
What is that one?
This is in the Ramble.
Now, there were people. Who was the famous? Was there a famous illustrator of birds?
See, I sit on this log.
Yeah.
That's where I sit every day.
You sit at the same place?
I sit in the same place.
So they'll know where
day.
to find you.
And in fact, that log is also the home of a family of great big rats.
Wait a minute. And rats I don't like.
I know. I don't either. But you know,
they're not muskrats.
This is a nuthatch that comes on my hand. You can see it on my hand. That's a nuthatch.
Yeah, on the edge of your hand, on your finger.
And when the nuthatch comes, it talks. It tells me. They usually, if I don't know they're there, they talk to me and tell me they're there so that I can put my hand up.
What language? Is it English they're doing?
Well, the nuthatch goes.
I'm making. Oh, how? Do it again. Do it again. You do.
It's kind of a nasal.
I've got a little book at home where you go into all the birds of the world.
And these are my sparrow friends. Sparrow friends. Look, and you see how they're lined up, and there's one you can see. He wanted me to throw the seed up in the air, and you can just see the seed just on top of my fingers, and the little bird flying up to catch it.
Yeah, sure.
Because that little bird would come on the back, and I kept handing out a seed out, and he would jump up. And I finally realized, after about 3 times, he wants me to throw it up. He doesn't want to take it from my hand. And that's what he wanted. He would keep coming back, and he wanted me to throw the seed up so he could catch it in the air.
So you got a lot of friends in Central Park.
So I have a lot of friends.
A lot of friends, really. Yeah. And they come, and the pigeon comes and meets you every day.
And here, this is a chickadee.
A chickadee.
This is a little chickadee.
Isn't that something?
And chickadees are wonderful.
That's a wonderful kind of testament to a relationship, and there's a lot of communication going on there.
Exactly, and they're as curious about
Couldn't
us.
Couldn't we communicate better
them.
With the creatures than we do as a species?
I think they look at us because we're so much bigger. It must be like our fascination.
Yeah, we would be huge. Yeah.
It must be like our fascination with whales.
Interesting thought.
Like people go out and try to communicate with whales where the eye is bigger than we are, practically.
Right.
And that's the way these birds must look at us. These great big creatures that are friendly to us.
Well, aren't
some
they
of them are mean, some of them are friendly.
Or something? The birds are descended of dinosaurs.
They are dinosaurs.
Yeah, that's where
because the big dinosaurs didn't survive because there was less food after that cataclysm.
75 million years ago.
But the little little dinosaurs survived, and that's the birds.
That's right. Yeah,
they're dinosaurs.
It's funny the way it goes. Yeah. So you've been doing that, and you're using your Reiki and everything like that. And
a few times I've had a sick bird with the sparrows, and it'll come and it'll just sit under my hand.
Yeah.
And it'll come every day for a few days until it gets better.
What about you were sitting on that log with the little titmouse or whatever, or the bird?
That was
and
you
said there were big rats there.
They're big rats.
Are those like sewer rats, or are they muskrats?
No, they're brown. So
they're not like rats that run around in the sewer. I hate those.
They're not sewer rats. These are they must be field rats, but they're not
muskrats.
No, that they chase the birds and everything. And I thought at a certain point,
that's part of the nature too.
There's a hole in the back of that trunk, and at a certain point I thought, I should stuff that hole up. But then I thought, no, this is their home. I'm the one who's intruding. I've got to.
So you've really become engaged with nature. You've become embedded in appreciating nature.
I have to respect the fact that this is their home, and they have a legitimate right to be
I think we ought to
here.
have, as a species, we ought to have more respect for the natural order. Don't
exactly.
You? Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Thoreau had some good things to say.
Thoreau was.
Wasn't he wonderful? Yeah.
He was it.
Yeah. Right.
And what he said about government was the same.
Well, tell me what he said about government.
Well, he said that the less government there was, the better.
Well, so did our Constitution, didn't it? I think, or tried to, and everything like that.
Exactly.
So what does that say about the Homo sapiens species?
Well, there aren't too many Thoreaus around.
No, yeah, I know. Yeah, no. It's interesting. And then that comes back to whether or not we can have an appreciation for a larger order rather than our own egoistic self.
Well, now that's what
this
is a book that I want.
Yeah,
The Myth
by all
of
means.
Human Supremacy by Derek Jensen. I discovered this book.
This is Bill McGibbon gives.
I just discovered this book a couple of months ago, and it expresses so many of the things that I've been thinking, that I've learned from spending time with the birds.
Yeah, I'm in.
You know?
I'm in.
And
is there other creatures you spend time with?
Well,
it's the birds particularly,
the birds,
right?
and I think birds are special because they have a connection with both the heaven and the earth.
Yeah.
And one of the things birds can see. For a navigating person, they can actually see the stars and the moon during the daytime.
Really?
Yes, and they also see the electromagnetic fields.
Is that true? Yeah. Okay.
This is what scientists are discovering now. Yeah.
Okay. Right.
And one of the things that's very interesting is that in order for a bird to be able to fly, it has to be very grounded, because a bird can only take off if it has strong legs or a strong leg.
To make that jump.
They have to be able to push off.
Yeah.
And they're sustained by the electromagnetic fields.
Is that right?
You know, we kind of think that they go off into the ether. No, they're sustained by these electromagnetic fields that we can't see, but they're just part of the earth like we are.
But we know is there.
We know they're there like air. We can't see air.
It helps explain the way they are.
Exactly.
And that's understanding nature.
So they have this connection. They have something that...
So we should understand and appreciate nature and the connection of everything.
A connection of everything.
Everything, right?
And I believe I believe because birds also, they migrate thousands and thousands of miles. Some of them
do. They make
some of them fly
things.
36,000 miles.
Sometimes to the same place.
Yeah, to the same place.
Yeah.
And I believe that
other creatures
one of the things that they're doing, because their wings are piezoelectric.
Yeah.
They're very nothing that we've ever constructed.
They fly
can match
thousands
wings.
of miles.
Yeah.
Or the thing we used to.
The wings are piezoelectric, which means that with friction, it's like with a crystal.
Yeah.
If you hit it, it makes sparks when you were a child.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, wings, the feathers do the same thing.
Oh, really?
With pressure, they generate a little bit of electricity.
I didn't know.
Okay.
Yeah, really.
Which is very interesting.
Yes, indeed.
And the other thing about birds is that they have air bladders inside their. They have air inside their bones.
In the bones, yeah.
And they have air bladders in other places. So when they breathe, they're breathing through their bones. They're more air than meat.
We could lead. We could learn.
Their wings often, their feathers weigh more than their bodies often.
Yeah.
They're these magnificent
So we should
creatures.
translate this out into a better appreciation of the whole ecosystem of which we're a part. And we should get some
in New York City
learning from that.
They calculate that 90,000 birds are killed every year by running into windows.
Running into windows.
Yes, because when the lights are on, they're attracted to, especially migrating birds. You know, city birds, sparrows and pigeons, they sort of learn that you don't run into windows.
Seagulls fly around us all the time.
They fly around. Yeah. But they fly into windows and they're killed that way. Yeah. And you know, look, some ornithologists are saying that there may not be any birds for next generation of people.
Wait a minute, talk about that. How can there be birds? There's so many birds. They're all over the world. They're everywhere.
Well, passenger pigeons were in the billions, and we exterminated them completely in this country.
Well, spell that out then, and particularly bring up your book again, because it's asking us to have a greater appreciation for
the myth of human supremacy. Now, I would have called it the tyranny of human supremacy, because we grow up with this idea that we are the top of the food chain, that we have greater consciousness.
Wait a minute. We are we not?
No, we're not.
We're not. Why aren't we the top of the food chain?
Because we're eaten by bacteria.
Oh, after we go.
No, even before. You know, people get sick and
it's part of the makeup.
It's part of that's the food. Isn't that part of the food cycle?
Well,
I think it's a cycle. It's not a. You know, we tend to think in straight lines, and things are more
linear,
circular.
Right, there's a lot of linear.
So you know, it's like we think we're the top of the food chain because we're bigger, but you know, the mass of bacteria and everything are bigger than humans. They're just you know, so it's just, it depends on how you look at it.
Yeah.
And you know, it's like, for instance, now one thing I like that he brings out.
Yeah.
He says humans, we believe we invented penicillin, You know, and there's
Well,
even they say, you know, that the Crusades brought penicillin back because they realized that moldy bread.
I didn't know they had.
They would put moldy bread on.
I didn't know they had penicillin at the time of the Crusades.
Well, they would they would put moldy bread on their wounds.
Oh, yeah.
So it's a primitive form of penicillin. But
yeah.
he points out that bacteria actually used penicillin against other bacteria. Way back when. So they used it as a resistance against other bacteria that were taking over their territory.
Don't they have a pretty good understanding of the evolution of things?
We don't know.
Well, you think we're off base?
I think we think of it as a linear thing, and it isn't linear.
It isn't linear. You think it's what?
It's circular. It's spiral. It's a more of a spiral.
Yeah.
So. You know, why are we superior? You know, when like he points out, you know, evolution is thought of in terms of adaptability.
Well, yeah.
Okay, the ability to adapt
and it's also got a thing
and
called
control
intelligence or something.
Well, isn't it? I mean, do you know what birds need in order to be able to navigate through a thick forest?
Right. Yeah.
I mean, we can't do that with our machines.
No, there are things. Oh no,
we can't do it with our airplanes or anything.
That's true.
We cannot. We can't do what they can do with their carpals and their feathers that come out of the equivalent of our hands.
Right.
We cannot do with the equivalent of our hands.
And there should be a lesson there. And one of it has to do with the global warming thing.
Well,
and that is being just
well, they're also saying that they're not going to be.
You
know, in 20 years there may be no more fish. You know, some scientists are saying. So if there are no fish and no birds, what does that mean?
Well, I'm not
there
sure.
There are fewer and fewer birds in Central Park. You know.
You find that from your own experience?
Yes.
No,
and about 4 or 5 years ago, actually, the Audubon Society said there were half the number of birds that there had been the year before.
On the planet?
In Central Park.
In Central Park.
Yeah.
Do they have any way of having those tendencies as part of a system for the planet?
Well, the problem is that
we have different forms of life, and they have the way of classifying the systems of life. You know.
Well, the problem is that we're taking
bacteria is everywhere.
We wouldn't exist without bacteria.
Right.
And we're even made up of bacteria.
Yeah, right. So everything is in a sense, and everything's related to it. But okay. That idea, what is it? The myth, or what is it?
The myth of human supremacy.
What would that mean? Supremacy.
Human supremacy is.
How do we define supremacy?
It comes out of some of the religious texts, like for instance the Old Testament and Genesis, where it says that basically God, gave dominion of the rest of the world to humans.
Yeah, but I don't trust those at all.
Well, no, exactly.
No, that's all women, fairy tales.
And people say, well, that's stewardship. We need to be. Well, women didn't like being under the stewardship of men. They were supposed to take care of us.
Yeah, right.
So it's the same thing. Why should they be why should we be their stewards? They're our equals. As beings.
I don't understand. Who's equal? The animals?
They're our equals.
Yeah, they're all part of a system. Yeah.
Meaning, we're not superior to them. They're our equals.
Well, it would call for, like in the law schools, it would call for a definition of terms, sir. What is? How do we define what is equal? What is?
Well, that's what they're.
What is the purpose of evolution, or is there a purpose to it? What's the direction of it? And everything?
You wonder.
But I think science has started saying there is.
Well, you see, but the problem is we like to think in linear terms.
Well,
really,
it's
like
think?
that.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, the Western way of looking at things is linear.
Well, where do you go to? What else? You got spiritual things. The spiritual things are not trustworthy. To me, they're just ideas of some political group that took control and got control over people and everything like that.
Well, I trust what I see in the ramble.
Well, those are birds. Oh, in the ramble, in nature.
Yeah.
Okay,
meaning
in nature.
The ones that I
there is a wonder and an absolute awesome
there's something
wonder
really awesome out there
about the whole thing, and how rare. I don't think we have any indication anywhere. 13.7 trillion years, the Big Bang. It started somehow. So these things exist, and then it comes down, and you got all these trillions and trillions of years. You don't know where it is. The work of Carl Sagan, and they get some understanding of things and everything, and we get down, and then we're taking the measure of things. We're able to do that, and we can extend our consciousness through technology. So those are some. How do we get? It's a thing. Mendeleev, where they had all the various creatures or the elements and so forth. There seems to be an order to things.
Well, there's an order that we are actually destroying. And this is what's sad.
Well, that's it. You think so?
Yeah.
Yeah, but the dinosaurs were destroyed 75 million years ago, made way for other things.
Well, no, the big dinosaurs were destroyed, but not the little ones.
Yeah, some of the birds are still
the
flying
birds are
around.
still flying around.
They're still flying around. They're saying, ha, 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 you know, like that. But no, but the thing is, I guess I have a different view of things, but I have a more normal one. But I think this is calling for, and there's more and more people who feel we have to have a sense of ecological appreciation for the larger context of which we're a part.
Well, exactly.
That's part of the.
I'm glad you used the word ecological because most people use environmental, and environmental means the environs around humans.
Right. Well, I did the work in geography.
And ecology is more accurate.
Yeah.
Because it takes into account not just humans.
Yeah. So. The dinosaurs were done in by a comet that hit, but we have the opportunity now, and now we're coming up to a time of just the extension of the consciousness we have.
Well, this is where we're going to part ways, because I think we're destroying our consciousness.
You do?
Yes, because I mean technology is taking us toward transhumanism.
Yeah, transhumanism.
Okay,
yeah, that would be what you would expect in an evolutionary sense.
Transhumanism is the destruction of nature.
Well, I don't know. Evolution, you have a system that could be in place for eons and eons and everything. And then something happens. Gould and Eldridge and that they have punctuated equilibrium. You've got a system that's in place for millennia, and then there's a process, and the new appears.
But all change.
And there's an evolutionary
everything new is not good.
Well,
I mean, some new things are good and some aren't. Some change is good and some change is not good.
Okay.
You know, one of the things that technology is doing is it's making a whole segment of the population obsolete.
I think it's going to make the whole. No, I think it's going to make all the political orders.
Well,
and
no,
the things
I think
by which they try to organize
I'm becoming
themselves.
obsolete because, you know, it's like the technology changes. You know, just with computers and cell phones, it changes every few months. So that
it goes exponential.
So people our age are all of a sudden left out of the picture.
Well, they always left the old timers behind.
No.
Yeah.
That's not true. For instance, in the indigenous societies, and many of the indigenous societies, they consider that older people have wisdom, and I consider that. I have a kind of wisdom that young people don't have.
You think
but there's no way for it to fit in.
You said you think you have. You know, I'm not here. I'm here to assure you, Guru. You have wisdom right down to the last cell in your body. You're one of the wisest people I know. I really want to understand what you're saying.
But I'm being disenfranchised by technology.
Feel that?
Completely. Yeah.
You think the better the better angels of our nature are being disassembled by our own
disenfranchised. We're being disenfranchised. There
is a wide sense of discontent abroad in the land, across the world, don't you think? Yeah, including here.
And you know, when you talk about nature, just things like cell phones and and computers. You know, I keep getting emails where people say, "Don't print this out." You know, be green. Well, there's nothing green about the internet.
What does it mean to be green? I don't
be green. Don't cut down trees. You know, and by printing this on paper because this is all virtual, so therefore it's green. Well, it's not all virtual because they have these cloud factories that store everything on hard drives and that we call the cloud because we don't see the storage facilities. But it's not out there virtually, and and this wireless technology is destroying nature too.
Well,
it's destroying insects that birds eat and so on. It's destroying.
What do you mean destroying insects?
The wireless technology.
Wireless it
emits radiation.
Radiation that harms insects.
So a lot of one reason that a lot of birds are dying is because the insects that they eat are being destroyed by wireless technology, and also their flight patterns are being. You know, for instance, they did a study in Spain where they found that storks. Because of the density of the wireless technology with the cell phones, and this was like I think 15 years ago. They found that the storks were starting to fight with each other, which they never did, and they were also laying their eggs on top of poles, and so the eggs would come crashing down. and they couldn't orient themselves anymore.
They used to do it on chimneys and stuff.
Exactly, but now they just do it on top of a pole that doesn't have a platform on it. Yeah. In those places. And then they found in Scotland, they did a study and they found that sparrows were getting all screwed up and everything. Yeah. And they passed some ordinances in the towns that the cell phone towers had to be put out, a certain distance and something, and the sparrows came back and they were fine. So it's actually destroying the ability of a lot of birds to and other animals. It's like they can also hear. They can hear sounds that we don't hear. Yeah. So cell phones and computers and refrigerators and everything make sounds that we don't necessarily hear. They're outside our range, but they can hear them. Yeah, that's
true. Right.
But they can hear them, and it's destructive to their habitats.
Yeah, right.
So, that's what I'm saying, that there's nothing green about wireless technology.
Yeah. So what is your thought? Are you optimistic, pessimistic for the... Well, let's say for the ecological order and the human prospect.
Well, when I think about when I look at the evidence, I have to be pessimistic.
Really, you're pessimistic for the ecological as well as the
I'm pessimistic
Homo sapien,
for the future,
the
future of our world. Yeah.
Do you think it's going to be obliterated?
I think it might.
We have the capability now.
Meaning,
to
I
do
think
that
we might.
at our own
I think
hands.
we'll obliterate civilization as it is, and we'll take with it a lot of nature.
But there's studies that do that, to study that and everything. People do have an interest in that, and we were impotent. No, there's studies. We've now reached the point where the weapons that do exist on hair trigger alert, particularly in the Trident fleets of the United States of America, where it barely is, and they won't do anything but keep making those things more strong, so they'll have a strong ability to have power relationships that favor us.
Yeah.
That the weapons, if they were unleashed in some spasm of ignorant haste, or what they've been doing, it would apparently, I don't know, you have to project it, it would eliminate the entire Homo sapiens species. Yeah. Now, would that maybe be a blessing in long terms, and to get rid of this evil thing called humanity? Well, is it that bad, or is there a possible other side to that we're coming to a point where in evolution you have a long time reigning system or species that's there, and then it comes to a thing, and then there's the creation of a new species. So we may be coming to a liberated order where people are going to be liberated to realize their full potentiality rather than being ensconced within nature where it was all very, very limited in terms of what we were able to do. But now we're able to we could get it to where everybody could be involved in their own liberation.
Well, I have to say, when I'm
we might be able to, if we had the right way of addressing the situation.
When I'm sitting out there in the ramble with my birds, I can't think of anything that would be more liberating. Or
how about everybody in the world? You got
people who live in nature. Yeah. Actually, I've realized. I've understood.
That. I don't think that.
People.
They lived in nature because they didn't have any choice. For one thing.
No. You live in a kind of ecstasy, like the animals.
Well, some do. Thoreau certainly wrote on that well.
Yeah, and it's like when I'm out there, it's like I just feel like nothing else matters.
Okay, wonderful. That's really good. That's really good. I'm glad you're always coming up with something. But
unfortunately, I'm also a creature of the West. It's like I'm used to having, hot water and a roof over my head.
Think about that. I saw a thing on television.
But let me tell you something.
All right,
I made a friend out there.
Yeah.
Armando, who lives.
Armando, do I know?
No,
I haven't.
He lives in Central Park. He's lived there for about 15 years.
Yeah.
He sleeps there, and he's the one who turned me on to birds. And Armando, at one time, had an apartment and a job, and he said one day he just said, "I don't want to be a slave, a slave to paying my bills every month." And he said, "I took my keys and I left them next to the door, and I took some cash out of my cash out of the bank, and I took a couple of changes of clothes. I walked out of the door and I walked into Central Park, and I never left.
Well, that may be something.
And he's the only person I know who's always happy.
Yeah, right.
Always happy.
Yeah. Well, okay.
He's always laughing.
Yeah.
Always happy, and he sleeps out there in the snow and everything, He says 2 sleeping bags is enough. But what I wanted to say is that I'm too much a slave. I couldn't do that.
I couldn't either. I wouldn't want to.
But I wish I had grown up to be able to do that.
Well, I didn't. I would avoid it. I don't trust nature at all. You know, I think it's, I don't trust nature. I think it's the salvation is in the allowing for the material abundance of everybody to be a have rather than a have not.
You're going to be a transhuman, and I'm going to be a bird.
No, transhuman, yeah, I think we're coming maybe to that. What we have to do is liberate the Homo sapiens species from all of the scourges that's the result of scarcity. They lived in scarcity the whole time, and we're going to be able to get a point where they're going to be able to have a have life.
I think we need to liberate humans from technology.
Well, we see we have a slight difference of opinion there, dear. I think the technology is going to set us free, and it's going to make it possible for everyone to become a have, and they're going to be undercutting all the systems of political power and economic machination, because we're coming to a point where we now have a technological system where we don't have to have zero sum. For one to win, somebody else has to lose. It's been the order of things, and we're going to have a liberated order. We're going to have like a gigantic jam session of a liberated humanity.
Listen, the way that many of the indigenous people live, they feel like they're haves.
Well, you're assuming that. I don't think so.
No, they don't.
I don't think so.
Well, I read the accounts, and I've
they had a thing. I got to get a word in edgewise here. They had a thing about the Edward in England. They had the women bringing buckets up to pour into a thing, so they couldn't be seen in the walls of the castles for the haves. For the haves, it was always been a few people have everything. Everyone else wallowing around in the poverty of slavery.
Yeah, but
that's a human condition.
But they're not living in the
wild. And they would do that. Now, practically everybody, we have a capability. Everybody can turn a tap and have fresh, good water, which every mother would like to have, and even hot water to have a shower. We got to get so everybody can have a warm shower.
But it's not fresh, good water. It's chlorinated water.
No, it's not. Well, no. I'm telling you, there's progress. There's progress.
It's chlorine with water, and then
we disagree.
And then people drink water out of plastic bottles, and plastic bottles are destroying the oceans.
I love the line of James Joyce. History is a nightmare of ghoulish scarcity, where nobody had enough. They had to eat carrion and whatnot to survive.
You're talking about civilized humanity.
No, I'm talking about the bulk of we ran away from cats that ate us regularly. We find some carrion we could eat. We got to do one thing. We got to stop talking now, because we come to the end of the time. And I think it's marvelous, the things that you've been able to present. And I do like Mr. Thoreau. But I do think we're coming to a time, there will be there'll be like a gigantic jam session of a liberated humanity that will interaccommodate us to the universe, to the a priori mystery of universal mind that we may be speciating.
Well, I think
that's a better thing to do.
I think that can only happen if we get rid of technology. I agree.
No, it's the technology that's going to set us free, and we have two capabilities collectively as a society. One is to annihilate or liberate the human society from the rigors of evolutionary process, and I would think it's better for us to liberate humanity rather than annihilate it. And
but we're going to liberate humanity by getting rid of technology. Then there won't be any nuclear weapons.
Well, one thing for sure, got to run the credits, because we've come to the end of time. The tyranny of time is also terrible. Nita Renfrew, an outstanding citizen of New York City, as you can see, and I couldn't get a word in edgewise, and that's always the way it is with me. I never get a chance to say anything. Thank you very much for viewing. Nita, it's so good to see you, darling. As always, you blow my mind. It never changes, never different and everything. Thanks a lot, Nita. Thanks for viewing. Please tune in. We'll be coming back tomorrow at the hands of Josie Ann. And thank you very much for doing. That's it. Over and out now. Until tomorrow. Okay. So never can get a word in edgewise. Can't get a word in edgewise.
Harold, I
tell you, nobody will ever listen to me.
This is the first time you ever listened to what I said.